And what the president now says about Roy Moore after all. ABC News has confirmed tonight Omarosa escorted out of the White House, no longer in the West Wing. The FBI in the hot seat today. Is there bias in the Russia investigation? The text messages revealed right here. Breaking news tonight, the deadly shooting at a Penn State campus. The images coming in late today. The officer handcuffing an 11-year-old girl, the police chief admitting it made him, quote, physically nauseous. And the winter storm tonight from Minnesota to New York, moving in now. And will your packages arrive on time? What we've learned tonight.
This is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on a very busy Wednesday night. And we begin with your taxes. Is President Trump on the verge of victory? He thinks so, and tonight he's making that promise that if passed, Americans will see savings within weeks. Tonight, Republican leaders in both the House and the Senate have now agreed on a single plan. President Trump making what the White House called his closing argument today. This evening, what does this mean for the middle class versus wealthier Americans? And what does it do to the deficit? And will it pass? ABC's Mary Bruce leading us off.
At the White House today, Republicans proclaimed they're on the verge of a big win on tax reform. The president with a Christmas promise.
We want to give you, the American people, a giant tax cut for Christmas. And when I say giant, I mean giant.
But back on the Hill, protests.
Kill this bill! Kill this bill! Not us! Not us!
Protesters say it will hurt the working and middle class. As lawmakers huddled in the basement of the Capitol to finalize the bill, even top Republican negotiators admit it's not a totally done deal. So do you have a deal?
Well, it's going forward. Very positive. It feels very close to an agreement. So,
even the president is cautious.
I mean, we are so close right now, so close. In fact, almost, I don't want to talk about it. Maybe we shouldn't talk about it.
Tonight, they have agreed to this. Helping corporations, it drops the corporate tax rate from 35 to 21%. Caps the mortgage interest deduction at $750,000, a middle ground between the Senate and House versions. Repeals the Obamacare individual mandate that all Americans have insurance, which could leave 13 million more Americans without insurance in the next decade. And to help the wealthy, it lowers the top individual tax rate from 39 down to 37%. How does that help middle-class Americans?
This bill is going to lower the tax burden on working families, on middle-income families, and it's going to generate tremendous economic growth.
But what about the deficit? It's still unclear how much this will ultimately cost. A new analysis predicts it could add more than $1.5 trillion to the nation's debt. And a previous analysis of the Senate version said Americans making $75,000 or less will pay more over the next 10 years. Democrats insist the long-term benefits will go to the wealthy.
Most of what's there for the middle class is written in disappearing ink.
The Republican tax bill is one that Ebenezer Scrooge would love. It is a big bah humbug.
Democrats are urging Republicans to slow down and wait until the new Democratic senator from Alabama, Doug Jones, is sworn in. But the pressure is on for Republicans to pass this before the GOP loses that Alabama vote.
And if it doesn't get done before then?
Well, then it could be a problem. There could be a problem at that point.
Mary Bruce with us live on the Hill tonight. We heard the president today promise that if he has the bill by Christmas, Mary, that Americans will see lower taxes and bigger paychecks by February. Is that true?
David, we've been pressing the White House for answers and calling the IRS. No response yet from the IRS, but the White House insists that starting in February, Americans benefiting from the tax cut will see less money withheld from their paychecks.
And real quick, Mary, Democratic leaders today pushing for Congress to wait for a tax vote until Doug Jones, the Democrat who won in Alabama last night, is sworn in the Senate, but that's not likely to happen.
David, there is very little chance of that happening. Doug Jones's victory last night puts even more pressure on Republicans to pass tax reform here and fast. David.
Mary Bruce leading us off. Mary, thank you. In the meantime, to that special election in Alabama, the nation watching late last night. In that deep red state, Doug Jones, he'll be the first Democratic senator in nearly 30 years, defeating Republican Roy Moore, who battled accusations of sexual misconduct with teenagers. The president gave him a full endorsement, but what he said today about Roy Moore after the loss. Here's ABC's chief White House correspondent, Jonathan Karl.
Mr. President. A subdued President Trump made it clear today he is unhappy with the results in the Alabama Senate race, even as many in his party are relieved.
A lot of Republicans feel differently. They're very happy with the way it turned out. But I would have, as the leader of the party, I would have liked to have had the seat. I want to endorse the people that are running.
Although the president tweeted this morning, I said Roy Moore will not be able to win the general election. I was right. Adding, if last night's election proved anything, it proved we need to put up great Republican candidates. But unlike many Republicans in Congress, Trump went all in for Moore.
Get out and vote for Roy Moore. Do it. Do it.
This despite the fact that 8 women accused the candidate of sexual misconduct, much of it when they were teenagers.
He denies it. And by the way, he totally denies it.
But Trump's endorsement carried surprisingly little weight. In 2016, he won 63% of the vote in Alabama, but among voters yesterday, his approval rating just 48%. On the flip side, Democrats are energized, boosted by a big turnout of women and African Americans.
Elections have serious consequences. And when you realize that, you tend to turn out the vote.
At least some Republicans were actually celebrating. Republican Senator Jeff Flake tweeting, "Decency wins."
You tweeted, "Decency wins."
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, I think that this was a good result. Paradoxically, it was a good night for Republicans. We didn't want Roy Moore here in the Senate. We have enough challenges as Republicans without being the party of Roy Moore.
Perhaps the second biggest loser of the night, Steve Bannon, the president's former chief strategist. He helped convince the president to support Moore. Now some Republicans want Bannon banished.
He looked like some disheveled drunk that wandered in off the street. I think we should shut him. I think we should cut him off.
John Carl with us live from the White House tonight. And John, we're learning that President Trump actually reached out to the senator-elect from Alabama, Doug Jones, today.
The White House has confirmed that the president called Doug Jones to congratulate him on his victory. Jones says the president also invited him to the White House. As for Roy Moore, he still hasn't conceded. He insists the race remains too close to call, although election officials in Alabama say there is no reason to question the results, which are expected to be certified before the end of the month. David?
All right, John, great to have you as always. Now to the FBI tonight and the Russia investigation. And this question, is there bias inside that FBI investigation? Tonight, right here, the text messages and the Deputy Attorney General in the hot seat. Rod Rosenstein on Capitol Hill facing tough questions about alleged bias. And he was asked, has he faced any pressure to fire Robert Mueller? Here's ABC senior justice correspondent Pierre Thomas tonight.
Tonight, the FBI on the hot seat amid questions of FBI bias after hundreds of text messages, some of them anti-Trump, between an FBI agent and FBI attorney have been made public. The messages were exchanged during the primaries between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, shown here in a Daily Mail TV photo. Long before the Russia investigation was underway, Donald Trump often the target of the FBI employees' ire, but they take aim at others too. Still, they're drawing fire for some. In August 2015, Page texts, "I just saw my first Bernie Sanders bumper sticker. Made me want to key the car." Agent Strzok responds, "He's an idiot like Trump. Figure they'll cancel each other out." And 3 months later, Strzok writes, "At some point, the Republican Party needs to pull their head out of their expletive. Shows no sign of occurring anytime soon." The day after a Republican primary debate, Page writes this text, "God, Trump is a loathsome human, yet he may win." Agent Strzok responds, "America will get what the voting public deserves. That's what I'm afraid of," says Page. At another point, Strzok writes, "God, Hillary should win 100 million to 0. Page's response, "I know. Also, did you hear him make a comment about the size of his blank earlier? This man cannot be president." Strzok was removed in July from special counsel Robert Mueller's team because of these texts. On Capitol Hill today, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein answering questions about whether there's bias in the FBI and the Justice Department.
I think it's important to recognize that when we talk about political affiliation, that all demonstrates political affiliation. The issue of bias is something different. We recognize we have employees with political opinions, and it's our responsibility to make sure those opinions do not influence their actions.
Rosenstein also pressed about special counsel Robert Mueller. He He was asked if anyone had pressured the department to fire him.
Nobody has communicated to me a desire to remove Robert Mueller. I think it would be very difficult, Congressman, for anybody to find somebody better qualified for this job. Director Mueller has, throughout his lifetime, been a dedicated and respected and heroic public servant.
Pierre Thomas with us live tonight on the Hill. And Pierre, you were watching this hearing today, but you were also watching something else, you and the team. Donald Trump Jr. interviewed behind closed doors by the Senate Intelligence Committee, the third committee now to talk to him about that Trump Tower meeting with a Russian lawyer during the campaign, the email that Don Jr. received promising dirt on Hillary Clinton. He was also questioned about his contacts with WikiLeaks.
That's right, David. The president's son, Don Jr., has been behind closed doors 8 hours and counting, questioned by Senate investigators on all those topics. David, he's still in there.
8 hours and counting. Pierre Thomas, thank you. There was a high-profile departure at the White House today. The press secretary announcing the resignation of Omarosa Manigault Newman, a former contestant on The Apprentice. So why is she suddenly out of the West Wing? ABC senior White House correspondent Cecilia Vega tonight.
Omarosa has to go. You're fired.
It happened 3 times on The Apprentice. And tonight, Omarosa Manigault Newman is out of a job at the White House. The official line, she resigned, quote, to pursue other opportunities. But multiple sources tell ABC News Manigault Newman was fired. And in a dramatic departure fit for a reality TV star, she was escorted off the White House grounds. Polarizing, to say the least.
Every critic, every detractor will have to bow down to President Trump.
She was also one of the most high-profile African-American staffers in the administration. A friend of the boss who could walk into the Oval Office whenever she wanted. That is, until Chief of Staff John Kelly took over. She notoriously clashed with fellow aides. And there was this scene at a journalism conference this summer.
If you don't want to be here, don't be here. Don't disrespect the story.
Many in the West Wing couldn't even say what she did in her role as Director of Communications for the Office of Public Liaison, and she will perhaps be best remembered for her lavish wedding and showing up to the White House wearing her wedding dress, a party van full of guests with her for an unannounced photo shoot.
Cecilia Vega with us live at the White House tonight. And Cecilia, Omarosa, a longtime favorite of President Trump's, but as you reported, Chief of Staff John Kelly not a fan?
Yeah, David, he cut off her access to the Oval Office. That did not make her happy either, and there does not seem to be much love lost here among many sources in the West Wing. One source described Omarosa as, quote, one disaster after the next. David.
Okay, Cecilia Vega with us tonight. Thank you. Next to a deadly shooting on a college campus near Pittsburgh, the Penn State Beaver campus immediately put on lockdown when shots were fired. Police finding 2 people dead, a man and a woman, in apparent murder-suicide. Neither were students. Next to Grand Rapids, Michigan, officers pointing their guns at an 11-year-old girl, handcuffing her as she screamed for her mother to help, and what the police chief is now saying tonight. Here's ABC's Alex Perez.
This hard-to-watch video sparking outrage tonight.
No! You're not going to jail or anything.
Those screams from 11-year-old Honesty Hodges. The incident, captured on the officer's body cam, began when the elementary school student, her mother, and aunt were leaving a home in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Police incorrectly believe the suspect, sought in an attempted murder case, was hiding inside.
Stop yelling.
Weapons drawn, the girl, terrified, starts crying as the officer cuffs her.
I didn't do anything wrong. I've never been in trouble by the Grand Rapids police.
Her mother demanding answers.
You got us all into cop cars, have my child scared. Like, why? For what?
The Grand Rapids police chief admitting the young girl was not treated properly.
Listening to the 11-year-old's response makes my stomach turn. It makes me physically nauseous.
And David, the police chief says the 11-year-old should not have been treated as an adult and says there's an internal investigation into the officer's actions underway. David?
Alex Perez tonight. Thank you, Alex. Next, the bitter cold in the east tonight after a first round of snow. The highest snow totals in upstate New York so far, 15 inches in Syracuse. A second round of snow falling right now in Wisconsin. Accidents lining the highways near Green Bay tonight. Winter is here. Wind chills many in the single digits. Meteorologist Rob Marciano tracking it all. I know it's not officially here, but it's here.
It is, and it's been a biting wind all day long. New York not alone, as you mentioned. Take a look at some of these numbers, what it feels like right now across much of the Northeast, single digits in many spots, teens. And as we look ahead towards tomorrow afternoon, really it doesn't get any warmer, nor does it on Friday, because we've got a strong Alberta clipper that's bringing that snow to the Great Lakes. That's going to usher in more in the way of cold air. Right now, it's got snow covering the entire hand of Michigan, Detroit, and getting in through Pittsburgh. Could see 4 to 8 inches of snow, including northern parts of Ohio. By the time it gets into New York, though, tomorrow in New Jersey, only 1 to 3 inches, but maybe enough to slick up the morning rush. David?
Rob Marciano with us again tonight. Thank you, Rob. There's still much more ahead on World News Tonight this Wednesday. Will your packages arrive on time? What we've learned tonight, the new headline. Also, the airport scare today. Word coming in about the passenger plane. Was it about to land on the taxiway by accident? The former Vice President Joe Biden's emotional moment with Meghan McCain, and news tonight about her father. And the documentary so many of you fell in love with. Well, there's news coming in tonight about the penguins. Were they once the size of humans? A lot more news ahead.
Postal Service delivers more of those purchases to homes.
And just 12 days till Christmas, the mad dash on to make sure that special gift reaches that special someone.
Even the smallest things
on time
are sometimes the biggest.
Are you a procrastinator?
Yes.
Always last minute?
Amazon today announcing they're expanding Prime-free same-day delivery and Prime-free one-day shipping to more than 8,000 cities and towns. Prime customers can shop until Christmas Eve morning. And if you're not a Prime member, you can do a free 30-day trial. Best Buy and Target now offering free shipping on most orders without a minimum purchase. And this Friday, free shipping day. Nearly 900 retailers taking part.
You get everything shipped for free on time for Christmas.
Okay, I'm definitely doing that this Friday then.
All right, free shipping day Friday, but does it get there on time, Rebecca?
That's right, David. It does get there on time by Christmas Eve, but keep in mind some of these retailers restrict it to certain items and a minimum purchase price, David.
All right, know that going in. Rebecca, thank you. When we come back here tonight, big news on Bon Jovi tonight. Also, the airport scare in Atlanta. The passenger plane, was it about to land on the taxiway by accident? What we've just learned. Sharing a personal moment, Joe Biden on The View, consoling co-host Meghan McCain. Her father, Senator John McCain, battling the same form of cancer that claimed Biden's late son, Beau.
One of the things that gave Beau courage, my word, was John. Your dad, you may remember when you were a little kid, your dad took care of my Beau. Your dad, when he was a mill aide, worked with me, became friends with Beau. And Beau talked about your dad's courage, not about illness, but about his courage.
It was a moving moment. Late word today that Senator McCain is currently being treated at Walter Reed Medical Center for what his office describes as normal side effects of his cancer therapy. Senator McCain and Meghan both thanking Biden for his support. Quite a discovery in New Zealand to report. Imagine penguins the size of humans. Fossils up to 60 million years old, revealing a giant penguin measuring about 5 feet 10 inches tall. 220 pounds, the biggest penguin these days, the emperor penguin, standing less than 4 feet tall. We all love that documentary. And the new inductees into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame tonight. Bon Jovi headlining the class of 2018. The band joined by the Cars, Dire Straits, the Moody Blues, Nina Simone, and her sister, Rosetta Tharpe. When we come back here tonight, we have not forgotten Las Vegas, and there was quite a milestone today.